Welcome to an early spring day and another in the series of how-to videos from Cutting Edge Training. My name's Nigel Church, one of the trainers for Cutting Edge Department. Today we're going to look at the aspects of top dressing, something that's been carried out since the late 1800s when golf started, the spreading of sand on the greens and other materials where relevant. Processes have changed over the years. For the last 50 years or so, the increase and demand for top dressing, the amount of top dressing that's put on, how often it's done, has changed dramatically. In those very early days, it was spread by hand, by shovel, from baskets and wheelbarrows. It was early 60s when the first self-propelled walk-behind top dressers came in, and it wasn't long before turf maintenance vehicles appeared on the market, and the top dresser was then mounted to the back of this vehicle, offering very fast, effective applications of top dressing as required. With the turf maintenance vehicles becoming wider, obviously there's a need for the top dressers to match that width of the back of the vehicle, and we are now applying top dressing at a 60-inch width. Very good, very fast, very effective and controllable. However, demands change yet again, and with regular requirements for light and often top dressings, the spinning disc top dresser certainly made an impact on the market, and many people use those today, with variable rates of application to meet the agronomic requirements of the relevant golf course and its greens. So what we'll do now, I'll walk over to Jamie, he's on the green, it's just been aerated, and we'll find out the next course of action to be carried out.
So, Nigel, we're on the first green here, and you can see James, our greenkeeper, has aerated.
Yes.
So, aeration and top dressing, they go hand in hand. They go nicely together. So, now what we can do is dress.
Okay.
So, if you'd like to just pop off and set up that drop dresser for us.
Yes.
Just for a nice light dusting.
Yes, okay.
Just enough, we don't want to smother the surface.
No.
Just so the particles just sink into the grass, that'd be great.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem.
So Nigel's talked at the start there about how the application of top dressing has changed over the years. But let's not forget, so is the agronomy side of it and what it does for us, the thinking behind what top dressing actually does to turf health and the playability of the turf. And of course how the demand of the golfer has changed over the years. We're at a higher demand than we've ever been. The pressure is on golf course managers and superintendents to mimic those surfaces that we see on golf courses on TV, like Augusta and St Andrews and such places. So it's a really important part of it. And of course some of those benefits, just to name a few, things like giving us a smoother, firmer, faster surface where we get a quicker ball roll. It aids drainage, it protects the crown of the plant from scalping at close mowing, and of course for me a big one is the control of thatch.
You know, you've got your dark black here, your thatch at the top, and then your growing medium down the bottom.
So before we go on to thatch, we're just going to look a little bit at particle size distribution and what that means to top dress and how that affects it. Because what we need to do before we top dress is actually we need to know what's in our soil profile. We have to make sure that we choose a material, whether it's sand, sand soil, peat. We need to know that it's compatible. If it isn't, we risk layering the profile. And if we layer the profile, we're creating more compaction, more anaerobic conditions, which is stressful conditions, and also limited plant and root growth and development, which we can't have. So to find out what's in our soil, that's very simple. We can take physical soil samples, which you can do yourself or through an agronomist, and these can then be sent off to an accredited laboratory who will compile a report. On this report it will show what kind of build your greens are, whether they are high sand, USGA spec greens, are they push up, clay soils, and what percentage of particles you've got, what kind of distribution, and the sizes of them as well. And from this you'll be able to really determine what kind of top dressing that you need that matches what you've already got. So particle size distribution then. What we have here essentially is uniform versus mixed. And so as the graphic shows here, a uniform profile is more of a consistent material. So whether it's sand, whether it's soil, silt, clay, whatever it is, it tends to be consistent. Therefore we have consistent particle size, and we have consistent gaps, or pores as we call them. The pores are what is used by air, moisture, nutrients to move around through the profile and drain through and be taken up by the roots. Now typically, on the other hand, what we tend to have is what we've also got here is mixed particle size distribution. So this is where we've got a mixture of everything, so sand, soil, clay, the lot. And because of the different sizes, so sand being a bigger particle size, down to things like silt and clay that are smaller, they tend to infiltrate each other and lock into each other, therefore closing off all these pores, and capillary pores as we call them, for water movement. So typically on a mixed particle size distribution profile, we get less, more restricted airflow and moisture and nutrient movement. Now this is quite important when it comes to top dressing, because if we were looking to modify our profile, which would be the mixed one, we'd be looking to introduce quite possibly more sand. Sand, being the bigger size, gives us more gaps. So beforehand we can take some of this material out, and a lot of which will be soil, replace that with sand, and we create better movement for everything, and therefore a better healthy grass. Now in relation to this, something else we should also think about is our soil ratio. And our soil ratio is what our soil is made up of, which we can see in our profile here. Now in an ideal world, the ratio in soil would be 50% solids, 25% air-filled pores and 25% water-filled pores. However, in some cases, like golf greens for example, 25% water-filled pores may be a little bit high. So therefore 12 to 15% may be a bit more desirable, which you can monitor with a moisture meter. And this gives us a slightly drier surface. A slightly drier surface means better airflow, better plant root growth, reduced risk of disease, and a firmer, faster surface, among other advantages. So thatch then, and here's a sample I made earlier. This is actually from our second tee behind me to my right here. This is actually a good example of what a thatch layer is, in quite a sufficient thatch layer. This darker material here is actually our layer, and it's retaining moisture, and of course with that it's holding nutrients and they're not reaching the roots. So then what the roots are doing are actually growing sideways like this. So now we're creating a thicker thatch layer holding more and more moisture and nutrients. So top dressing helps us break down this organic matter through microbial activity, or increasing microbial activity. And what that microbial biomass does is, in this profile, is help decompose and eat away at the matter and plant residues, or fresh plant residues. Now of course there has to be some amount of organic content, because we need a little bit of moisture retention, particularly in sandy soils like we've got now, where moisture and nutrients just drain away. A surface area with 1 or 2% organic content, that's acceptable. But when we start getting higher than that, that's when we've got too much, and top dressing lightly and frequently helps us keep a good thatch level control of that. Now then, I hear my colleague fast approaching. So you remember earlier Nigel went off to fill up the top dresser and just set that up and program it for a light application. So now what he's going to do is just do a couple of passes, because we don't have big greens here, in what is now a very modern way of top dressing. So Nigel, excellent. You know, we've put a light dress in following aeration, which is the norm now. And you talked at the start of how advancements and technologies has changed in regards to top dressing. You've programmed that to do a light dressing, which we've done. We could go heavy if we wanted. Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere in between. You know, it depends on the warrants of that particular greenkeeper, that particular golf course. Yes. Yeah. So all that's left for us to do then, Nigel, is just brush this in, leaving us minimal disturbance to the golfers. Keeps them happy, and that keeps our turf happy.
Yeah, good.